All right, can you hear me now? I'll take that as a yes. Um, so let's try this again. Um, they do not share the same values. The radical left and Islam, they don't envision the same society. And in a sane world, the radical left and Islam would be enemies. They would be at each other's throats. But they found something powerful enough to unite them, and that is a shared enemy. And that enemy is Western civilization. That enemy is you. So we are going to get into all of that and a whole lot more right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Oh my goodness. Um, Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, right here on the SHR Media Network, where faith in God is the standard and masculinity is not toxic. Today is Thursday, July 23rd, the year of our Lord 2026. And we have a lot of good stuff to get into today. But before we do, as usual, do all the algorithm things, like, subscribe, share, help us to break free out of this algorithm quagmire that they have us in. Every like, every click, every share, every comment, all of that matters. So do us a favor and help us out with that. And also, we have the individual Mission Ready Men briefing channel. Same content, same show, just a different way to access it. So if you haven't hit us up on the individual Mission Ready Men channel, do us a favor and check us out there and like, subscribe, and all the algorithm things over there as well. If you were here right at the beginning, there was no sound, and I don't I don't get it. I don't get it. I have just real quick. I have screenshots of all the settings. I check them every day before I come on. They're all the same, and then today, no sound. I had to change it up. It's infuriating and it's hilarious because I I just don't get it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. You saw the title of the show and the screenshot, the thumbnail. They have a shared enemy, and that enemy is you. It is an unholy alliance, and it's not new. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into the history of it a little bit as well, but it is a tactical partnership between the far left lunatics and the jihadists. I don't even like calling them Islamists or radical Islam. We've been doing that for so long, it slips out. But they are jihadists. I when I interact with any of them on social media, that's what I refer to them as. Especially especially Mehdi Hassan. I call him a jihadist every chance I get. But they both target Western ideology, Western civilization, and Israel, which they consider part of the West. And they've been at this for a while. But I want to play you something that was particularly disturbing, but not at all surprising, as nothing from these people usually is surprising. But let's take a look at this real quick.
The U.S. government and the Israeli government, they're in the midst of creating the Fourth Reich. And it is absolutely accurate to compare these people to Mussolini, to Adolf Hitler.
These are all people who are taking part in this progressive victory town hall, I guess you would call it, that they had. This was back in March, but I just came across this the other day, and so I wanted to take a look at it. But as you can see, you saw some of. I didn't recognize some of the people that you saw. We're going to continue here in a second, but you saw Cori Bush, Hassan Piker, that famous Mao Zedong fanboy, just a whole host of left-wing lunatics, including Ro Khanna. Although after this, his office kind of tried to distance him from it, but everything he said since then just is right in line with this. But let's continue with what Kyle Kuklinski has to say.
We're governed by dead-eyed psychopaths and sociopaths and bloodthirsty imperialists. The U.S. government and the Israeli government, they are the terrorists. They are the terrorists. They are doing terrorism. If Iran's off the table as a regional power, that means Hezbollah can't be funded, Hamas can't be funded, the Houthis can't be funded.
He's really on camera saying that, complaining that Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, all these terrorist organizations can't be funded if Iran is off the table. Why is that a bad thing? Well, of course, it's only a bad thing if you're a rabid leftist or a jihadist who hates America.
Like the Shia crescent falls, and then you have nothing but regional domination for Israel. There's a reason why I call Israel and the U.S. the axis of Epstein, okay? There's a reason why I've said repeatedly that they're in the midst of creating the Fourth Reich, because that sincerely is what they're doing. These are genuinely repulsive, disgusting, wretched, depraved human beings. And it is absolutely accurate to compare these people to the worst criminals in history, to Mussolini, to Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. As you can see on the screen, they're only getting more extreme. And Kyle Kuklinski, he has a show on YouTube. I can't remember what it's called, but he has the nerve to talk about the Fourth Reich and dead-eyed psychopath. Kyle Kuklinski, and I call him Kuklinski because he's fond of calling everyone who disagrees with him a cuck. And this is funny coming from a guy who's married to a woman named Crystal Ball. Make of that what you will. Look into her and her past, and then you'll understand what I mean. But he is not unique on the left. He's one of the more outspoken ones, but they all feel this way to one degree or another. And this whatever this thing was, this victory this progressive victory event that they held. It raised about 40 grand for progressive candidates, and the organizers of this thing just keep doubling down. They double down on this stuff all the time, and it's it's remarkable, really. And you saw Ro Khanna and Abdul El Sayed. He was featured here, and he has a half sister who is a professor at the University of Chicago. Her name is Iman Abdel Hadi. She's in bed with the DSA. She advocates for a stateless, communized society. She's one of the abolish ICE lunatics. She was arrested in 2025 at an anti-ICE protest. She authored a novel. I can only imagine how many copies it sold. But she authored a novel that envisions a post-capitalist revolution that includes, obviously, she's a Muslim, the destruction of Israel. It's worth noting, though, as a Muslim, she defines herself as queer. I'd be interested to know how that would work out if she traveled to any of those countries. And what's also funny is Abdul El Sayed's campaign talks about his family and their moderate stances on things, but they don't mention his queer sister. Interesting. I wonder why that is. I don't wonder, but you get my point. Karina Mullen, another one of these rabid left-wing lunatics. She was a former professor at CUNY, and she is also linked to the DSA. She was involved with the Islamic Revolution teach-in, where she gave a speech praising Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, praising their achievements. In her speech, I couldn't find a video of it, but in her speech, she framed the Iranian state as defending the working class. What? These people are insane. She has called for bringing down the US empire by any means necessary. Let's take a listen to some of this woman's dribble.
At this historical juncture of U.S. imperialist decline and the rise of a multipolar world order, the capitalist state, it's clear, cannot tolerate unrest across multiple battlefronts. Facing growing resistance from Palestine and Iran to the Sahel Alliance, to Venezuela and Cuba, increased South-South military and economic collaboration are all contributing to accelerating U.S. imperialist decline. From the indigenous land back movement to the movement to stop the building of cop cities, which we'll also hear a lot more about today. These are the military grade training facilities and mock cities designed to practice urban warfare, essentially to repress our liberation movements. From this student intifada.
Or maybe just to stop you guys from rioting. Like we saw, she referenced Cop City, the one in Atlanta, during the Summer of Love. I mean,
to the anti-ICE uprisings across the country, the imperialist powers are resorting increasingly to fascist lawfare, using, so-called counterterrorism laws and judicial repression to instill fear and suppress movements that threaten to expose and unravel their power in the belly of the beast.
It goes on. It goes on and on. She is representative of these people who just hate America. And if you see her in some other images, I think I have one here. She's always in a keffiyeh. This is her, and this is her in her keffiyeh. These people are insane. And we could go on. We could talk about all of these rabid, left-wing, America-hating lunatics. We could spend actually talk about this every time we did a show, because there's that many of them and they're that insane. But let's get into the history of this, because this goes all the way back to 1979. And there were Western leftists back then who were embracing Ayatollah Khomeini. They tried to portray him as a pious Democrat. They gave him favorable coverage. A guy by the name of Richard Falk wrote a piece in the New York Times called "Trusting Khomeini." But I guess these people didn't read anything that he wrote, because in 1970 he wrote something called Islamic Government, where he rejected completely secular democracy. Rejected it completely. In this book, he expressed anti-Semitic views. Obviously, he's a Muslim, a jihadist. And he talked about women's rights and how basically they didn't have any. He wanted to purge all of Iran's socialist allies. But everybody ignored warnings from smart people who knew what this was going to bring. And they still, for some reason, are just, I want to say completely oblivious, but I think it's just willful ignorance. They really believe somehow that their cooperation, their collaboration, their capitulation is going to somehow appease them and make them not want to kill them when they get into power. It's, again, a phrase I've used quite a bit from Gad Saad, suicidal empathy. It is suicidal empathy at its worst. And it started way back then. It's in full swing today. You saw it on these campuses, students for justice in Palestine and queers for Palestine for some ridiculous reason. And the media amplifies it. The American Pravda amplifies this stuff. And you have funding from these Islamic countries in these places, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, funding these academic programs, along with Iran and Iranian and Chinese influence. I really have a hard time understanding. And we talk about this all the time. They tell us in no uncertain terms what their goals are. Yeah, the leftist Marxist lunatics, they tell us they want communism, but the jihadists tell us they want a global caliphate. They tell us they want Islam in every home. They tell us that their goal is to take over. They tell us that their goal is domination. And somehow these left-wing lunatics think that that's somehow compatible with jihadists and Islam. And the jihadists are perfectly happy to let them go ahead thinking that. Until they don't need them anymore. In 2025, just to tie this together even more, we had attacks that illustrate the two tracks and the synergy that they display. Because in Washington, you had the two embassy staffers who were killed by a radical left-wing lunatic chanting "Free Palestine." And this guy was indoctrinated by the American education system, and all over his social media, he was telling everybody how radicalized he was. Things like, "Don't blame me, I voted for Hamas." "Death to America" with 3 Ks. And he learned this in the American education system. And then in Colorado, you had the firebombing by a jihadist. His social media was filled with endorsements of the Muslim Brotherhood. And he was very fond of the phrase, "Islam is the solution." Solution to what exactly? He recorded a video on his social media where he said that jihad was more beloved to him than his mother, wife, and children. And that Allah is greater than the Zionists and America. Jihad is more beloved to him than his mother, wife, and children. How sick and depraved is that? This juxtaposition between the radical leftists and the jihadists, I believe there's a synergy there, because the Marxists, the leftists, they provide an energy, a revolutionary type energy, I guess. And the jihadists, they have the religious zealotry, the almost compulsion. And this is amplified by the American Pravda, the media. And this is not it's not new, and it's founded or grounded, I guess you would say, not just in a mutual hatred of the West, but a mutual hatred for Christianity. They reject any and all biblical principles. They reject the creation of humanity in the image of God. They deny Jesus Christ. And that, along with just their mutual hatred for the West, is what roots and grounds this unholy alliance. It's dangerous to let this continue. And we have an American Pravda, we have a compliant left wing that they're just rushing to embrace this jihadism that's going to kill them the very second they get the opportunity. And again, the whole Queers for Palestine thing is just, that's just mystifying to me. But this is a, as I mentioned before, it's a historical pattern, and this is a tactical calculation by both parties. And eventually, they're going to turn on each other. And so we need to be extremely vigilant, and we need to get more involved in the political process. This is a complaint I have about a lot of conservatives and Christians in particular who just sit out and just let all this stuff happen. There are, I believe, somewhere around 120 million people who identify as Christians in this country. If they voted, and there's a huge percentage of them, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but a huge percentage of them just don't vote, don't participate. But if they did, we would not be in this situation. If they did, we would not have cities and states that have this sanctuary policy nonsense. We wouldn't have cities and states that are allowing Islamic enclaves, allowing them to buy up large pieces of land and put mosques and schools and housing developments where only Muslims can congregate, changing the street signs to terrorist figures, naming streets after terrorists. If Christians voted, we wouldn't be dealing with a fraction of this madness. So that's what we need to do. We need to mobilize. We need to get out there and vote. We need to eradicate this radical jihadist movement that is taking root, because it's fast approaching the point of no return here. It's fast approaching the point where us being involved isn't going to be enough, and it'll require some divine intervention. And we don't need it to reach that pitch. Anyway, we're going to be talking about this a lot for the foreseeable future, obviously. But there's a few other things I want to get to. But before we do, I want to get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is Carry Girl Gear. It is summertime. It is summertime, and Carry Girl Gear has the perfect gear for it. Lightweight shirts, beautiful designs, drinkware for when you're out on the boat or out just grilling in the backyard, hats, accessories that you'll actually love and use and wear all summer long. Perfect for, as I said, boat trips, road trips, backyard cookouts, you name it. And so if you want the easy route, you can get a gift card. That's always an easy win. And she won't be disappointed and you'll look like a hero. So visit carrygirl.com today. Head over to carrygirl.com and get summer ready before summer is over. All right, there's another big story that we have to talk about, obviously, and that is the voter fraud that was. We talked about President Trump's address to the country, and all the evidence that he declassified and stuff like that. That the American Pravda just said, well, yeah, that's evidence, but it's not real evidence. There's no evidence to back up the evidence that you provided. Just insane. But I mentioned, but I didn't have the video, but I mentioned last time that Mikey Sherrill admitted to all of the illegal aliens that were registered to vote. But let's take a look at what she had to say.
In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. When New Jerseyans applied for a driver's license or identification at the MVC, they were asked if they wanted to register to vote. In the case of this error, some individuals indicated that they weren't citizens and weren't eligible to vote, but the software registered them anyway.
Do you buy that? Do you buy that? Because I don't. I don't buy that for a second. She admitted to 6,600 and fewer than 400 voted. That is not, I can almost guarantee that is not an accurate number. That is probably the floor. And I guarantee you more than 400 voted. And they've been telling us for years that this never happens. They've been telling us for as long as we've been bringing it up. This never happens. It's illegal for people who are not citizens to vote, they said. Now, Mikey Sherrill, she blamed the software. She blamed it on a glitch. But IDEMIA, I think that's how you pronounce it, they issued a statement saying that the software glitch claim was complete and utter nonsense. In a statement, they said that IDEMIA works with New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission and has more than 40 years to support the process through which eligible individuals may indicate their interest in registering to vote when applying for or renewing a driver's license or state-issued identification card. IDEMIA's role is to transmit information through the motor vehicle system. The voter registration information is transferred to the New Jersey Department of State Division of Elections, which is ultimately responsible for verifying eligibility to vote. Information submitted by IDEMIA must still be validated and adjudicated by the Division of Elections. This is nothing more than damage control. That's all this is. This is complete damage control. And there is absolutely no way that this was simply a software glitch that resulted in 6,600 aliens being registered to vote. The number is much higher than that. But of course, they will tell us that this is not a big deal. This is not a big deal at all. Listen to this fool.
The Republicans here are talking about a solution to a non-existent problem. Again, Jake, to make it very clear, this country does not have a problem of election security in any measurable level, and certainly not based on people coming from other countries.
Right, it happens, but at very, very minuscule numbers. It's not a serious threat when it comes to election security. Again, it happens, but very seldom.
Vanishingly small. I mean, it is so small that
vanishingly small, he says. No, this was after they couldn't just come out and say it never happens. So now they're saying, and this is another pattern, it never happens. Trannies in bathrooms, in women's bathrooms, assaulting women never happens. Oh, but it does happen, but it's such a small percentage that it's not really statistically significant. That's the same argument here. And I've showed you many times instances where votes have been decided by pulling a name out of a fishbowl. Elections have been decided by 10, 20, 50 votes. But it never happens. Or it happens so rarely that it doesn't matter. But of course, they're talking about these statewide and national elections. And in that instance, actually, I think there's even been some statewide elections where they've been decided by less than 100 votes. So even that's not true. But after Mikey Sherrill's admission here, of course, Jake Tapper had to do a little tap dancing, and this is what he had to say after that.
But Mikey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, yes, made this announcement today, a surprising announcement. Nearly 400 non-citizens voted in New Jersey elections as a result of what she calls a serious software error. Governor Sherrill posted this quote, "As the Trump administration tries to weaponize elections for political gain, I am ensuring we protect our elections." She goes on to say the difference is simple. When we find a problem, we don't hide it, deny it, or invent conspiracies. We investigate it, we fix it, and we tell the public. I have to say, though, for Democrats, I'm not saying that the Save America, the SAVE Act is going to pass. Yeah. But this is not good for Democrats' argument that there's no such thing as undocumented immigrants voting.
This is not good for our country generally, I would say.
Even better.
And it is not, this is a terrible problem to have. I think she handled it correctly.
But
I want to, before we move on, I want to thank everybody for being in the chat. I want to thank the moderators for being in there and keeping order. Llama Drama, yeah, I did say that Christians, if they had been voting, we wouldn't be in this situation. I just think that if 120 million Christians voted, it would be too big for them to really do anything about. I mean, people in New York, they win their races, 1,000 people vote, 2,000 people vote, when there are tens of thousands, dozens of thousands of eligible voters and a fraction of them vote. So yeah, I don't see that as a contradiction. I get what you're saying, but I don't see that as a contradiction on my part. But anyway, so they have been telling us for all this time that there's no voter fraud, and now it's happening, but it's not enough to sway any elections. But I think we've proven that it can. Scott Jennings had a couple of, or he had in his segment on Abby Phillips' show, who is one of the dumbest people on TV. I think she has overtaken, or she's taken over Joy Reid's slot. But her show, where she's supposed to be a moderator, she's just another debater on the show. But let's take a look at this. Not that one. Here we go.
Well, I didn't say it invalidated Mikey Sherrill's election
I didn't
result.
say you said that, but I also dispute the idea that there's any proof that this is widespread.
I think there are thousands of non-citizens on the voter rolls in New Jersey, and I'm pretty concerned about that. I would call it a widespread problem. I think the bigger problem here is that...
What's your definition of widespread, by the way? Is it 1%? Is it 2%?
I don't know, more than 100? I think it's a big...
He made a mistake right there. He made a mistake right there by actually giving them a number. He validated her argument by answering that in the framing that she gave. He should have said what Scott Jennings is about to say, but check this out.
Problem. What's yours?
What's your tolerance for this?
Hold on. This is not about tolerance. This is about, is it widespread, or is it something that is relatively rare,
You're
Scott?
Pounding him over the word widespread. I just would ask you,
Scott,
what is your tolerance for any fraud at all?
Is it widespread?
Absolutely. Over 6,000 people.
What is your bar for widespread?
She said, my bar is I want no tolerance. Okay. I have zero tolerance.
So what is your tolerance for American citizens?
By the way, this isn't the only place this is happening.
And she's about to move the goalposts, as they always do, and turn it into something that is completely irrelevant to the discussion at hand.
Tolerance for American citizens whose valid voter registrations are invalidated by incorrect databases. What's your tolerance for that?
I don't have tolerance for any mistakes in the electoral system, including putting non-citizens on the rolls.
So then why are we not keeping the same energy for that as we are for this?
I do have energy. As you know, I've come out here and long argued that every time we don't clean up the voter rolls, that every time a non-citizen makes it onto the voter rolls, it invalidates some legal person's vote.
What about when an American is not allowed to vote when they are eligible to vote?
I don't have any tolerance for that either. An American citizen should be allowed to vote. But American citizens are invalidated when illegal aliens
then with the
are glitched onto the system?
Using a system that a federal judge recently found was actively removing U.S. citizens from the voter rolls based on inaccurate information? Why are you comfortable with?
Who said anyone was comfortable with that? They move the goalposts so easily and just completely dishonest arguments. I don't understand how Scott Jennings deals with this he does make it look easy. I'll give him that, but just unbelievable.
With that system being used to check the voter rolls.
This is a convenient deflection for you. This is the worst possible story that could happen for Democrats right now regarding the debate over the SAVE Act. 6,600 illegal aliens in New Jersey that you know about.
Can I tell you? And right there at the end, he said that you know about. Because as I said at the beginning, 6,600 is most likely the floor. There are probably, there's probably hundreds of thousands of illegally registered voters. And I guarantee you that more than 400 illegal aliens, ineligible voters, voted in that election. Guaranteed. And the thing is, it may not have affected Mikey Sherrill's election, but those down ballot, those down ballot seats, those down ballot offices that sometimes people just ignore, It doesn't take much to sway one of those elections. There was another Scott Jennings classic. That wasn't the clip I was actually looking for, but you get the point. You get the point. She goes on to talk about how it wouldn't have swayed her election, and we just talked about that. They are desperate. They are so desperate to downplay this, because what it does is it proves President Trump right. As I said in the last time we were together, in the last show, it proves that there is voter fraud, and she may not think 6,600 is widespread, but it's widespread enough. And then all you have to extrapolate that over across all the blue states that don't have any election integrity measures in place. States like Massachusetts, Illinois, Maryland, California, where they just stole an election from Spencer Pratt. And if we have time, I got something. I got something about that too, if we have time to get into it. But yeah, this is a huge problem. And just think about it. The only states that Kamala Harris won were states where they didn't require any voter ID, which means illegal aliens didn't have to present any ID to vote, which means who knows? And I mean, think about what happened. Think about New Jersey, just to get back there for a second. This is just the people who were caught. What about all the ones that didn't get caught? Vanishingly rare. 6,600 is not widespread. Just, they are desperate, absolutely desperate to downplay this. They are desperate to have President Trump not be right on this. They pivot so fast from it never happens to, well, it happens, but it's not a big enough deal for us to even worry about. And I guarantee you the pattern is going to hold, and it won't be long. It will not be long before they say, well, yeah, it happens, and it's not really a bad thing that it happens. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. So imagine what would happen imagine what's going on right now in all the states where the governor just wants to ignore the problem. Imagine what's going on, like I said, in California or Illinois. It's the states that are refusing to turn over their voter information and being sued by the DOJ. Mikey Sherrill, I don't even want to give her credit for it because, like I said, I guarantee you that the numbers that she reported are way, way low. But just for argument's sake, let's stipulate, okay, yeah, this was a good thing on her part. What do you think is throughout all 50 states, but especially the ones where there's no, especially the ones where the Republican governors and legislatures are blocking this, where they don't have voter ID and all of that. When they finally discover that thousands of people are illegally on the voter rolls, what do you think the chances are that they're going to actually come clean? And if they're somehow forced to come clean, what do you think the chances are that they're going to try and pass it off on a software vendor? This is the tip of the iceberg, and this is the floor. I guarantee you that if there were to actually be real audits, I guarantee you that every election in the past 20 years would be called into question. Every single one. And this is why we need the SAVE Act. And John Thune and the rest of the feckless Republicans in Congress, I have to wonder if they hate America as much as the leftists and the jihadists. Especially the rhinos like Thune and some of the other ones. But anyway, let's let's move on, because there's a couple of Jason, you were absolutely right. Refusing audits is evidence of guilt. I agree. I agree. All right, let's get to something. Let's get to something a little more lighthearted and entertaining. There was a couple of hearings on the Hill, and Brandon Gill is an absolute rock star. This guy who is he's not a trained lawyer, but he absolutely cooks these witnesses when they come with some nonsense. And there were a couple of hearings that he was in this week that were absolutely amazing. Here's I got a couple of clips that we're going to show you, but here's the first one.
Director Hardig, thank you for being here. Would you say that the goal of history, even if it's not properly carried out, would you say that the goal of history is to be objective?
Thank you, sir, for the question. You know, I think that There are many goals of history, and certainly as you collect, as we do, examine evidence, create
Is
scholarship.
objectivity one of the goals of history?
We strive to be objective and nonpartisan and not based on any ideology.
So it's one of the goals. Doesn't that seem a little bit concerning? It certainly.
He's talking to the director of the Smithsonian, and she's way out of her depth. But let's continue.
Certainly does to me, because as part of this white supremacy document that your organization has promoted, objectivity is a core and defining aspect of white supremacy culture. Do you think that it's the goal of the Smithsonian Institution to promote white supremacy culture?
Sir, do you mind sharing with me which document?
White supremacy culture right here. This is part of the mass action toolkit that your organization has promoted for several years now under your leadership.
And this is not the first time that this has been brought up. I think I actually talked about this a couple of years ago when this thing made the rounds, and you can find it on X right now. But yeah, this is just ridiculous.
Are you promoting a white supremacy culture at the Smithsonian?
What is she doing?
Ma'am, is this a difficult question?
No, sir, I'm just thinking about the mass action toolkit. We didn't develop it, but back to your question, no, we're not promoting any ideology.
Does it concern you that your goal is objectivity, one of your goals is objectivity, and your mass action toolkit references objectivity as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture?
It's not our toolkit.
It is your toolkit. You've been promoting it for quite some time.
It is their toolkit. It is their toolkit. It's on their website. There's really not much else you can say. She can deny it all she wants, but of course she's wrong. But there was another one that there were a few actually. He only grilled her for 5 minutes, and there were a lot of moments in this, which is pretty amazing for a 5-minute session. But let's check this one out.
Is Mickey Mouse racist?
Mickey Mouse is not racist.
It's not racist. According to the Smithsonian Institution, one of your exhibits referenced Mickey Mouse as representing, quote, vestiges of longstanding traditions of blackface minstrelsy. Would you describe that as racist?
No, the historical trajectory of the origins of Mickey Mouse tied directly
so Mickey Mouse is rooted in racism. Is that your testimony?
No, sir, it's rooted in minstrelsy.
Minstrelsy, and you don't think that blackface minstrelsy is racist?
It had certain obvious racial overtones that have been well documented.
You think that that's problematic, that Mickey Mouse also has those racial overtones?
It's not for me to determine what's problematic. It's determined to me what's accurate.
Is that right?
He was not impressed with that answer. But there's one more. There's one more that I really don't understand these people. I really don't. I don't understand how they come to some of these conclusions. It's insane. But let's check this one out.
Yes,
is it important to be polite?
excuse me, sir?
Is it important to be polite?
Yes, sir.
It's also interesting because the same mass action toolkit that your organization has been promoting references politeness as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture. Ma'am, are you a white supremacist?
No, sir.
You're not?
Is it just me, or does it look like she's not really taking this seriously? She's writing down things as he's waiting for answers, and she's smirking as it just doesn't seem like she's taking it seriously at all.
Can you help me square why your organization says that being polite is part of being a white supremacist?
I'm not exactly familiar with that passage of the Mass Action Toolkit, which is not
I can show you the
one that we
passage. It's
developed.
right here.
I don't, pardon me?
I said I just read you the passage from it.
And then your question was, sir?
We're going to move on.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. This this guy is 32 years old. So yeah, he is a kid to me, I guess. He is absolutely killing it. He graduated in 2016 with a Bachelor of Arts in history and economics. He's not a lawyer. And as we're about to see here in a second, he probably should have been a lawyer, because he seems to have a natural talent for that kind of work, because he's just cooking people who are lawyers and judges and the like, and they can't contend with him somehow. It's it's really quite entertaining. But not only did he have that hearing on the Smithsonian, but he also had one with about DEI, and he had the leader of or the president of the American Bar Association, and she was also out of her depth when it came to contending with his questions. And some of that was also quite entertaining. So let's take a look at some of that, because yeah, here we go.
According to the ABA's website, quote, all of us have implicit biases. Would you agree with that statement?
The ABA believes that diversity, equity, and inclusion improves the practice.
Would you agree with the statement that, quote, all of us have implicit biases from the ABA's website?
The ABA believes that diversity in all of its
Is that a
realms
yes?
is
Can I
important.
take that? It's a yes or no question. Do you believe that all of us have implicit biases, as your website says?
The ABA looks to remove barriers, and we examine.
That's not my question, ma'am. Do you believe that all of us have implicit biases?
I've expressed what the ABA is doing.
That is the ABA's position, as expressed by their website. Against which groups do you have implicit biases?
The ABA believes that it's important to always explore.
Are you going to filibuster? Because it doesn't make you sound very good. I'm going to ask you again, against which groups do you have implicit biases?
It's important to always examine everyone's point of view and where they may need to consider.
It is. What about your point of view?
I am here as the president of the American Bar Association.
And I'm asking you what your implicit biases are.
The ABA is an entity.
Have you reflected on your implicit biases?
I think about how I operate
What are they?
the world constantly.
Would you like to explain to us what they are?
I am here speaking on behalf of the ABA, and the ABA.
Right.
Wow. That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. Have you reflected on your implicit biases? Oh my goodness. That was, I laughed out loud the first time I heard that. That was absolutely hilarious. And she's a lawyer. She's a lawyer, and he made her look absolutely foolish. And here's another one. that here's another one that was just as amazing. I love reacting to his clips because they're sometimes you don't even really need to say anything. It just is what it is. But let's check this last one out.
So transgenders haven't been represented on the Supreme Court. Do you think that it's important that the next Supreme Court justice be transgender?
The ABA does not subscribe to any particular quotas.
I'm not asking about a quota. I'm asking about representation, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The ABA supports diversity in all of its forms. And
have transgenders been included on the U.S. Supreme Court?
The ABA supports the full spectrum of diversity.
Do you think that it's a problem that the transgender community has never had representation on the U.S. Supreme Court?
The ABA believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion as.
And I'm asking you about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm asking you about inclusion of the transgender community.
We believe that people ought to bring their entire self to whatever role they're serving.
You're refusing to answer my question. Do you think that it's important that we have a transgender Supreme Court justice?
I believe that it's
in order to include that community.
Of course she believes that, but she doesn't want to say it because it's going to make her look even more foolish than she already looks.
I believe that it is always important, the ABA believes that it is always important to support and encourage diversity.
So we should have a transgender Supreme Court justice?
Diversity has many forms, and we believe that.
Do you think that you're not answering in a straightforward way? Do you think that's because of your own implicit bias?
I believe that I'm trying to explain that the ABA does not set quotas and does not believe.
Do you have implicit transphobia?
The ABA believes that diversity.
Do you have implicit transphobia? Awesome.
In all of its forms is important and helps the profession more globally.
Just like I said, he is an absolute rock star. But there was something else. There was something else, and I don't have the clip of it here, but there was something else that she said with respect to these the Supreme Court justices. And he asked her about the ABA in helping to evaluate the Supreme Court justices. And she said that they didn't. But it turns out that they do. This is what is it? This is the Supreme Court appointment process on congress.gov. And Section 18, all 15 members of the ABA committee take part in its evaluation of a Supreme Court nominee. Committee members conduct confidential interviews nationwide with practicing lawyers, judges, law professors, and others who are in a position to evaluate the prospective nominee's integrity, professional competence, and judicial temperament. So they are involved, which means they could recommend a tranny for a Supreme Court nomination. And I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later, unfortunately. Because I think that goes to judicial temperament, judgment, mental competence, calls into question all of that. And not to mention, it falls right in line with DEI. So not only is the justice, a potential justice, going to fill a DEI quota, but they're also a lunatic. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. All right, there's a couple of other things I want to get to here. Speaking of the trans community, Sophie Cunningham. I don't know if you may know who Sophie Cunningham is. She's the WNBA player who went viral for pointing at an opposing player, which was amazing in and of itself. And she's been in the news for basically having Caitlin Clark's back, and we've talked about her a little bit, but it's the WNBA, so there's really not a whole lot there other than the black lesbian thugs who are beating up on Caitlin Clark every night because they're jealous that she's better than they are. But that's a whole other story. But Sophie Cunningham has been going viral occasionally for the way she handles herself on the court and some of the things that she's saying. She was a ring girl at the UFC fight that was on the White House lawn, and she's kind of a breath of fresh air in women's sports. And she was asked about trannies in women's sports, and she said that she was not in favor of it. And so at a press thing, I guess it was after their practice or something, they asked her about it again, and this was her response.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of...
I said what I said. Just awesome.
Common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
Yeah. Do you see your advocacy on that, like, taking any form going forward?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
Do you think, I guess along the line like that, it goes against perhaps, some people might say, hey, for the trans community, this could be something that could come back on us or be targeted against us. Like, how do you, I guess, view that sort of critique?
You know, like I said, I extend love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there's room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone.
Sophie, what about Connecticut today?
Yeah, I mean, she's right. I mean, there really is. If Title IX, if women's sports were protected, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because these people are so bent on having men participate in women's sports, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when if somebody said to you, would you agree to have biological men or men competing against women or boys competing against girls? People would have looked at you like you had 6 heads. Like, what's wrong with you? Of course not. But now with this woke mind virus that people have, everybody is, well, not everybody, obviously Sophie Cunningham's not, but people are just accepting this as good, as true, when it's not. And the one thing that I will say is I hope, she said that she's going to always be true to this and stand on it. I hope that on Saturday or sometime next week, we're not here talking about how the team or the league got to her and forced her to walk back her comments. I really hope we don't see that. But as it is right now, she said what she said. And I think that is absolutely awesome to see and hear. And then we had, just to juxtapose that, we had Megan Rapinoe on The View with those cackling hens, with those harpies, and she has been on this men and women sports thing for a long time, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense coming from an athlete like she was. And coming from an athlete like she was, whose team got beat by a bunch of 15-year-old boys. They were grown professional athletes. And this high school team of soccer players came in and whooped them. And she somehow thinks that men competing against women is going to be fair. I really don't understand that mentality from anyone, but especially from a female athlete. A female athlete who has been railing against the system to get equal pay for a crappy product. And she thinks that somehow having dudes pretending to be women competing against them is gonna make that better for them and for the women coming up behind her, because she's retired now, obviously. The whole argument, and the reason I'm not playing any clips from her is because her whole argument was just completely incoherent. It made no sense, as it usually does whenever she's talking. But there were a couple other things I wanted to get to. Something else happened that they said never happens. And I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to get to it, but so I didn't prep it. But there was another murder by an illegal alien. And another completely preventable tragedy that took place in Virginia. And this lunatic, left-wing, ridiculous excuse for a governor is allowing this to happen. She's allowing it to happen. And Jesus saves. Yes, you're right. The whole trans thing is about hating God. You're right. You're right. But getting back to this Virginia governor and the illegal alien that was allowed to roam her streets because of the sanctuary policies and her refusal to work with ICE. we have this tragedy to deal with now.
The murder of a toddler in Virginia, fueling more criticism of Democrat Governor Abigail Spanberger's anti-ICE policies. Police say an illegal immigrant from Mexico sexually assaulted a 2-year-old child. She died shortly after that attack, and prosecutors charged the man with murder and aggravated sexual battery. DHS says, quote, this horrific tragedy was completely avoidable because this illegal alien should never have been in the country. Governor Spanberger's sanctuary policies have made Virginia a hotbed for illegal alien crime. The murder of a toddler in
just horrific. Absolutely horrific. Horrific and completely preventable, as is every murder and sexual assault by one of these animals. Completely preventable. Sanctuary policies are dangerous. They are a threat to the safety of every American citizen. And these leftists just don't care. And I think they don't care. I've said this before, but I think they don't care because they want people to be afraid and they want people to be dependent on them. And if they allow an army of illegal aliens loose to roam free and kill and sexually assault people, all the better for them. Look at Mayor Mohawk's response to Sheridan Gorman's murder in Chicago. And I mean, you could go down the list. Jocelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin. Just, there's just so many people who should be alive today, but are not because these anti-American, America-hating, left-wing lunatics are just letting it happen. It's evil, it's horrific, and Todd, I mean, how sick and depraved are you that you would even conceive in your mind to do something like that? And how sick and depraved are you as the governor of a state to allow that to happen? Yeah, Roberto, you're right. They they are insane. All right. We are running out of time. I did want to talk about that lunatic who put the cake in front of Lindsey Graham's office, but I'm really kind of exhausted talking about these people. I should have ended with Brandon Gill. That would have been funnier. But anyway, that is going to do it for us. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch our great lineup. We have Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. They have been on a bit of a break, and I believe they will be back soon. But be sure to keep an eye out for them. They will be back. And then we have BZ and the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The saloon is open every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. He will be in the saloon tonight, serving up a lot of goodness and dealing some blows to the left, as he always does. It's going to be a banger of a show. And then we have Beer and Bullstein with Lyle Armstrong every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I believe he will be back this week. So be sure to check him out as well. Be sure to like and subscribe, share all of those great shows, and pray for us that we continue to break through and reach as many people as we possibly can. But that's going to do it for us here on this briefing. We're not just here to fill the air. We are here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. And if anything that we said here tonight resonated, please don't just watch, but share it. Share it with another guy and bring him into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com. Click Shop 7 Armors and check out all of the great designs we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. Yeah, you can get this 0% liberal shirt, one of my favorites. And while you're there, you can check out the SHR shop and get the merch for all of the guys on the network, all of their great shows as well. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.